Hello YouTube, this is Corbin22 here, back with another 100 point Squadron build for Star Wars X-Wing miniatures. Tonight, for this build, we're going back to the Imperial faction again. I'm trying out something a little different. This is going to be kind of like an escort build, and this is a build that can be used for both competitive and casual play, but it can also be used for like, solo missions and stuff. Like say you want to um, with some of the larger packs, they come with like scenarios for different missions, and with the shuttle, there's one scenario where you have to rescue crew members from disabled transports, and of course you need the shuttle plus however many other ships to in order to pull the mission off successfully. And for this build, I've chosen the Lambda-Class Imperial Shuttle, piloted by Captain Kagi, and then 4 TIE fighters, all piloted by pilots of the Elite Black Squadron. And so yeah, focus behind this build. The shuttle is pretty much going to be, if you're going to be using it for competitive or casual play, the shuttle is pretty much going to be the one lagging behind. The TIE fighters can either escort the shuttle, like stay as close as possible to it, and make sure it gets that extra coverage, or they can fly off and engage in battle with enemy ships while the shuttle lags behind and attacks them from a distance. Of course, it'd be a good idea to keep at least one of these TIE fighters close to the shuttle, that way it can provide some covering fire if an enemy ship gets too close. So, that being said, here are the ships, here are their pilots. Let's look at the build itself. Now, it's kind of a big build. The shuttle has the most upgrades on it, the Black Squadron pilots being only having like one upgrade on them each, but that it can, like I said, the way the build works is the fighters are pretty much escorts, and the shuttle is going to be the heavy ship that's doing most of the heavy hitting from a distance, but at the same time, it's also going to be the prime target for for the enemy, because, well, shuttle's a big ship, and a big ship means bigger. A bigger target means a bigger reward if you take it down. So let's start with the. This time we're going to start with the escorts for this build. They're all the same. They all have the same upgrades. So I'll make this short. For the shuttle's escorts, I've chosen 4 Black Squadron pilots. They all have a pilot skill of 4, and they fly the Sinar Fleet Systems TIE Fighter. They have an attack value of 2, an agility value of 3, a hull value of 3, and a shield value of 0. They can take on the focus, barrel roll, and evade actions. They cost 14 squadron points, so fairly cheap. And they can take on an elite pilot skill upgrade. Now, it's a common pilot, so there are no abilities, but it can compensate for that by taking an elite pilot skill, and not many common pilots can do that. I mean, there's the Saber Squadron pilots, and there's also the Green Squadron pilots that can do that as well. And I believe a Royal Guard pilot can do that as well. But I digress. 4 common pilots, all of them costing pretty cheap, and can take on an elite pilot skill, is not too bad, all things considering. It's a good balance between going for cheap costs but having an effective ship. Now, all of them, for all of their elite pilot skills, I've given them all an adrenaline rush. Get that to focus. Let's see if I can get this to focus. Come on, focus. Hopeless. Anyway, adrenaline rush states, when you reveal a red maneuver, you may discard this card to treat that maneuver as a white maneuver until the end of the activation phase. So with adrenaline rush, it's kind of like a one-time use only thing. And whenever you the only red maneuvers the TIEs have are K-turn 3s and K-turn speed 3s and K-turn speed 4s. And what that allows is all of these TIEs can perform 1 K-turn, and then they can discard this card and treat it as a white maneuver so that they don't get stressed, which will allow them to perform an action for them to better fight against the enemy. Yeah, and all four of these Black Squadron pilots have the adrenaline rush, so that allows for them all of them to perform K turns at one point, spend their adrenaline rush, and treat all their K turns as white maneuvers. Now let's move on to the big ship of the group. The big ship and the escort that the TIEs are escorting is Captain Kagi. He has a pilot skill of 8. He flies the Lambda-Class, the Imperial Lambda-Class shuttle. He has an attack value of 3, an agility value of 1, a hull value of 5, and a shield value of 5. He can take on the focus and lock-on actions. He costs 27 squadron points, and he's able to take on a systems upgrade, a cannon upgrade, and 2 crew slots. His ability states, when an enemy ship acquires a target lock, it must lock onto your ship if able. So with Kagi, Captain Kagi kind of saves the Black Squadron pilots from lock-ons, because if they're close enough to Captain Kagi, if the if the ship is able to lock on to Captain Kagi as well as a Black Squadron pilot, the ship must lock on to Captain Kagi instead, even if the ship is outside the firing range. So that can kind of ruin your chances. That can kind of ruin the enemy's chances of taking down a Black Squadron pilot with, like, say, a proton or a missile or whatever, because say they have them in their sights, but Kagi is close enough. Captain Kagi is close enough to use his ability to make the enemy ship lock onto him instead, which can kind of disrupt the whole plan of locking on and attacking with a secondary. And yeah. So, of course, it also helps because it can give the other TIE Squadron pilots a chance to come up behind the enemy and take them down from behind while they're locked on. So there's that too. Now, for the first upgrade I've chosen for Captain Kagi is a sensor jammer. A sensor jammer states, when defending, you may change one attacker's hit result to a focus result. The attacker cannot reroll die with the changed result. So with the sensor jammer, it allows, the way it goes like this. The enemy always attacks before you defend. When you defend, you can use Sensor Jammer. If the enemy has at least one hit, you can change that hit to a focus, and the enemy cannot change that result with any die. You cannot reroll the die with the changed result. I believe if the enemy has a focus token, then but then they'll have spent their focus token. So yeah, Sensor Jammer is good for softening the blow or evading one entirely. So yeah, the next upgrade I have for his cannon, I've chosen to give him an ion cannon. Ion cannons have an attack value of 3. They can be used at range 1 to 3, and they state, attack one ship. If this attack hits, the defender suffers 1 damage and receives 1 ion token, and then cancel all dice results. So with ion cannon's a good can upgrade for Captain Kagi, because he can attack from any range 1 to 3, and if it does hit, the enemy takes 1 damage, be it shield or hull, suffers 1 ion hit, is put on 1 ion token, and they can only perform a speed 1 white maneuver before they can take off the ion token and perform their action. It's useful for helping the TIEs get into a better position for them to attack the ship that's disabled, as well as getting you in a better position to attack the enemy ship if disabled as well. Now, for his first crew slot, I've chosen to give him a Rebel Captive. It's a crew slot that can be used only by the Imperial faction, and it states, once per round, the first ship that declares you as the target of an attack immediately receives 1 stress token. I can tell you right now, a friend of mine used this on his VT-49 Decimator and caught me off guard with this, and honestly, it pissed me right off. Because Rebel Captive, the first ship that attacks the shuttle, they receive a stress token. So that means they'll be unable to perform it could mess up your strategy of performing a K turn the next maneuver, or performing a double action with push the limit or whatever like that. So it's good for messing up an enemy's strategy of getting behind you with a K turn, but at the same time it's kind of a downside because it only works on the first ship that declares an attack. Any other ship afterwards, they don't suffer that stress. So yeah, watch out for that. At most, make sure that only 1 ship is in range of attacking you when you have the Rebel Captive active. Now for a second crew slot, I've chosen a Mercenary Copilot. A Mercenary Copilot it states, when attacking at range 3, you may change one of your hit results to a critical result. And this goes well with Captain Kagi's ion cannon and his primary weapon fire, because Captain Kagi is going to be if you decide to go with the TIEs dogfighting off in the distance, Captain Kagi is going to be lagging behind, which means he'll have plenty of opportunity to attack enemies at range 3. And with the Mercenary Copilot, he can if he gets at least 1 hit result, he can change that result to a critical, allowing for an added effect in case the enemy has no shields, and if you're lucky, you'll get a direct hit or a munitions failure or whatever. And yeah, so I'm gonna call this my what should I call this? I'm gonna call this the I guess Black Squadron Escort. Yeah, simple as that. This will be my Black Squadron Escort build. Its strengths. All 4 of the Black Squadron pilots have Adrenaline Rush, which allows for 1 free red maneuver to be turned into a white maneuver, and by discarding the card. So, yeah, with the Black Squadron ties, they can use a K turn to get behind the enemy ships, spend their Adrenaline Rushes, and then still be able to perform an action, be it a focus or a barrel roll to get into a better firing arc, or they can still perform an evade if another ship is behind them. And yeah. And then, of course, Captain Kagi has Sensor Jammer, which allows him to change one of his enemy's hit results to a focus, so they can't change it. Ion Cannon deals ion damage from a distance. Rebel Captive deals stress to the first ship that attacks him, and Mercenary Copilot allows him to change one of his hits to a criticals when attacking at range 3. The disadvantages of this build, well, let's get the obvious ones out of the way. All the Black Squadron pilots have no shields. Their agility value is good. Their attack value is impressive, but they can only take 3 hits before they go down, which makes them especially vulnerable to criticals like direct hit or either stun pilot or damaged cockpit, because I think those stun pilot, I believe, if they collide with an object or another ship, they suffer 1 damage. Stun pilot or damaged cockpit treats their pilot skill as 0, and direct hit, obviously, they suffer 1 extra damage on top of that. With Captain Kagi, low agility value, high defense, high attack value. His ability, while it may save the Black Squadron pilots, it'll also make him more of a target. So, yeah, which means enemies that are close enough to lock onto both a Black Squadron and Captain Kagi, they will have to lock onto Captain Kagi, which is good. But it's not good if if Kagi is within their firing arc. So, kind of, it's kind of a bit of a double-edged sword. Yeah, the Rebel Captive only works on the first ship that attacks it. Any other ship that attacks after it won't get that stress. Mercenary Copilot only works at range 3, and Sensor Jammer only changes 1 of the hit results to a focus. It doesn't change all of them. So, yeah, I gotta watch out for that. But yeah, aside from that, it's a pretty decent build. It combines a swarm with a large ship. So yeah, you've got strength in numbers, but you've also got incredible firepower on top of that with the shuttle. And the shuttle is I think the shuttle is one of the few ships that can actually perform a stopping maneuver. I think the only one that can do that is the Hound's Tooth, which is a new ship that was released for the Scum and Villainy faction. But the downside of that is it counts as a red maneuver, so you stop and you have to receive a stress, which means you can't perform actions. At first, I didn't quite understand why that was the case, but then I figured, wait a second, the ships are always going to be constantly in motion in real time. So if it all of a sudden does a stop, yeah, it's going to stress the pilot out. So especially if it's an abrupt halt. So yeah, that makes sense. Anyway, yeah, this is my Black Squadron Escort build. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Any constructive criticism is greatly appreciated. If you like, you may use this build for competitive or casual play, or if you want, you may tweak it or completely revamp it to your own specifications. Thank you guys so much for watching. This is Corbin22, signing off.